So let's go ahead and get started with BookWidgets for beginners. I've already logged in to bookwidgets.com. You may see in the chat a link to our website, bookwidgets.com. And I want to remind you, if you're new to BookWidgets, everyone has a free trial account. Now, I'm going to be demonstrating for you today the complete content creation loop. I'm going to show you a variety of options that you have while you're creating content, how to share your exercises with your students. I'll also go in as a student and show you how a student would complete a BookWidgets activity. And then I'll return as a teacher and show you how to grade and provide feedback to your students once you've created an activity. Let's dive into creating a widget. Now, from our homepage, we can select this blue bar and create a widget. Once I select that blue bar to create a widget, this is where I have my content creation widget template library. So a widget is a template that you use to create content. We have our content divided into categories, the first being our most used test and review widgets. The quiz, the worksheet, and the split worksheet are our top 3 widgets, but I also want to highlight for you the new video quiz widget and one of my favorites, the web quest widget. So the quiz and the worksheet are exactly the same. The only difference between these two templates is that the quiz provides the students the questions one by one, while the worksheet is a scrolling page of answers. And I will tell you, sometimes I use a quiz even when it's not a quiz, because my students panic if they see 15 or 20 questions and they say, I can't do it. And so I use a quiz so they don't feel overwhelmed. A web quest is a great way to gamify your classroom, and we do have a webinar coming up on gamification, so please make sure you register for that if you're interested. Our next group of widget templates are our games, some of the familiar games that you know: crossword, word search, snowman, a bingo card, pair matching, and one of my all-time favorites there is the jigsaw puzzle, because while it's simple, there's so many great things that you can do with it. Of course, as a bilingual world language teacher, the picture and video widgets were some of my favorites. The hotspot image, where you can add a video, pictures, text, web pages, pop-ups tied to a hotspot, are really great activities that you can use in your classroom with your students. And then we have our specific math activity widgets, our third party, and our miscellaneous widgets. And just because it's at the bottom, don't forget those miscellaneous widgets. I especially want to encourage you to check out that planner widget. It's really a great widget to use in your classroom. So let's go ahead and dive in and start creating a widget. I'm going to go to one of our favorites, which is the worksheet widget. So I'm going to click on that worksheet widget. And now I'm in my widget editor. I call it my editor. You might call it your creation page. But from this page, my first tip for you is always to work top to bottom, left to right. So let's start here by putting in the name of our widget. And today I'm going to be working on parts of the house. And you can add a description if you want, but it's not necessary. I would always encourage you to put a title for your widget. Otherwise, all of your widgets say no name and they're hard to organize. Sometimes in the description, I put the anticipated date that I'm going to be using or some information about my class. I also want to highlight the About section. The About section is really great because this section is where you put information just for you as a teacher. Your students do not see this About page. So here sometimes I have my lesson plan, my standards, any links to other activities. So I contain everything in one place, making it easy for me to stay organized. You'll notice that it's a rich text editor, so you can put in links, images, tables, bulleted lists, everything for you, but it's only visible to you as the creator. And I want to highlight for you, anytime you see anything here that's in this light gray, especially if you're new to BookWidgets, make sure that you read this. It's so important as it will provide you directions, hints, clues, and tips as you create your widgets. Now, remember what I said, we're going to work top to bottom, left to right. And I always say, just follow the blue line. So now we're going to head on over to our questions, and I'm going to select add my first question. When I select add my first question, I now get all of my questions that I can use to create content. There are over 30 question types that are auto-graded in BookWidgets, and a few question types like the short response, extended response that you would grade on your own. So most of these questions will be graded for you by the BookWidgets platform, but there will be a few a few questions that you will need to grade yourself. This very first question is really important. This very first question is a text-only question, and it's a great place for you to put instructions. So let's go ahead and click here and type instructions. And then I'm going to ask my students, tell my students what I want them to do. So in this instance, I'm going to ask my students to label the parts of the house in English. And because this is a text question, I don't need to worry about grading it. It's just information for my students. Now I'm ready to add my next question, and I can do that in one of two places. At the bottom of the page, follow the blue line, or I can arrow back and click Add Question. That brings me to my question types, all of the different question types that I have. And just like you need to take time to explore your widgets, you're going to need to take time to explore the question types. I will tell you that sometimes when I first started, I chose the wrong question type, but the more you practice, the better you will get. I'm going to start with one of my favorite question types, which is annotate picture. An annotate picture is where you have a background image and you ask your students to interact with that image. My question, once again, are my instructions. My instructions here are going to be to look at the image and label the parts of the house. I don't know about you, but I can't type and talk at the same time. Now I'm going to work top to bottom, so I need to go get my background picture. When I choose my background picture, I have three choices. I can choose an image that I have saved on my desktop. I can import an image that's saved on my Google Drive, or I can find an image online. We have, are you ready for this? Our own Pixabay image curated library. So you don't have to go and worry about searching for an image and making sure that you have the correct licensing. We have everything done for you. I'm going to go ahead and choose an image. I'm going to find an image that I have already saved on my desktop for this time. And you see, before I can even get back to my image editor, my image has been added into the background. Following that blue line, I now am going to add my input field. The input field is what information do I want my students to provide for me? So let's go ahead and start with the first input field that I want for my students to do. Let's say that that's the bathroom. Now, it's really important that you type correctly here because this is what BookWidgets will use to grade the students' work. And here's a hint for you. Look at that gray underneath. It tells you that if you use the double hashtag, you can say to BookWidgets, hey, I will accept more than one correct answer. In this instance, I would accept bathroom, the bathroom, or a bathroom. So I'm going to put all three of those in, and any three of those that my students enter will be correct. Now I need to place the position of my entry. So I'm going to look at my house. Here's my bullseye. I'm going to drag my bullseye over to the bathroom. And then I'm going to give you my next hint. Click wherever you would like that input box for your students. Don't worry about dragging the input box, because if you're like me, once you start dragging, you're going to resize the box and then all of your boxes will be different sizes. So just click wherever you would like that input box and then select Done. Now, I never believe that whatever I'm working on is going to work, so I always hit that preview button to see if I'm on the right track. Look at this. Here we are. I have my bathroom highlighted, and this is where my students will be inputting their answers. To navigate back to my editor, I just click this small X right next to design and print. So I'm going to click that small X, and let's go ahead and add another input field. This time I'm going to add living room and my double hashtags. And my position. So here's my bullseye, bring my bullseye down, click wherever I would like living room to be the input, select done, and you can see how quickly it is to just continue to add our information. Let's go ahead and do bedroom. And once again, add our input field, find our bullseye, and over. And you can always adjust this however you would like it. Don't forget to click done. Let's add another input field. It doesn't matter what order you put these in. BookWidgets will look at any of them to find the correct answer from your students. I'm going to find my bullseye. And here we go. Let's do one more. I really want to give you a good idea of what this is going to look like when you create your widgets. And I'm only going to put one answer in here. Don't worry, there's a reason why I'm doing that. And we're going to go ahead and get our basement. And let's take a look, click done. And let's take a look and see if we like where all of our annotate fields are. Oh yeah, I really like how that looks. If, for example, you felt these were too close together, you can go back and edit. Everything is totally customizable and editable. Click my small X to come back to my question. And I just want to highlight for you my other options here that I have here. For example, I have my questions, title and reporting. So what is title and reporting? Title and reporting is about how do I want to receive my answers from my students? In this instance, I'm going to want to see my students' answers. So I'm going to select enable submitting of answers. And you can also choose that your students can only submit one time. That's totally up to you. And then I want to come down to my general section. And this is really important. In my general section, I want to decide whether or not the students can see the correct answers and whether or not I will show whether their answers are correct or incorrect. If I uncheck this top one, then they both go away. But if I only uncheck the bottom one, then my students can still see whether the answers are correct or incorrect when the quiz is done. So sometimes I don't want to give them the correct answer because by the time I see sixth period, they're all geniuses. So sometimes I let them see if the answer is correct, but not show them what the correct answer is. You can also color code answers, and I do this when my students are doing activities for practice. I'm going to turn that on so you can see what it looks like. And you'll notice that you can configure that for each question. I'm going to turn it on for all of my questions right now. I'm going to come back to my questions. I'm going to come back to my labeling on the parts of the house. And I'm going to come down here. Since I said my students are going to submit the work to me, I'm going to come down to the very bottom to my correction and scoring options. And you'll see right now that my correction and scoring options for this question is 1. You might think, but wait, Cheryl, you had five sections that you wanted the students to complete on the part of the house. I think you should make that 5. You don't want to make that 5 because it means that each one of those input areas would be worth 5. So in this instance, leaving it as 1 will mean that each one of those answers will give the students a correct point. So the total for this question would be 5. I hope that makes sense. If not, make sure you ask me about it when we come to our question time. All right, let's go ahead and add another question. So I've added my instructions. I added my look at the image and label the house. And this time, I want to do some matching. Here's a little hint to help you quickly find something that you want to look for, a question type. You can use that filter button. In this instance, I want to do a audio word match. So I'm going to select my audio word match. And I'm going to tell my students to listen to the audio and match it with the correct word. Remember, we're going to follow that blue bar. So I'm going to go ahead and select add. Now, super important here. It says audio description. It's really important that you add a description here because when you return the work to your students, they won't get the audio. So it's important that you put here what it is that they listened to. So my first is going to be kitchen. I'm going to record. And once again, we have our three choices. Choose a file, import from Google Drive, or record. I'm going to select record, and directly inside BookWidgets is my recording option. I'm going to select the record button. Kitchen. And a little hint I have for you is once you press that record button, take a little breath or pause so that your beginning sounds are not cut off. Before I even finish talking to you, my audio fragment is here. I can listen to it. Kitchen. I can decide that I like it or I can record it again. And now I'm going to put in my matching word. So remember, my audio description is just for when I return the work to my students so that they can remember, this is what I listened to. Let's go ahead and add something else. Let's do bathroom. Click my audio fragment. Bathroom. Accept. Bathroom. Make sure I spell it correctly. And you can see how easy it is to add content quickly and easily. Snap. That's all right. The great thing is we never lose any content. I'm just going to come right back to bedroom. And you can see anytime you have something that's not working, you have that little arrow. So now let's try my record again. Bedroom. And I'm going to continue adding my different options. Let's go ahead and add a couple more. We'll do our living room, which we practiced in labeling the house. Living room. Don't forget to add the right-hand side. And one more. Let's do our attic. Attic. One of the great things also that I love about these matching questions is you can add distractors. So this time I'm going to not do an audio description, and I'm just going to do laundry room. And I want to show you what's going to happen when I didn't add my audio segment. Look here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now my matching is a little bit more difficult for my students. So if you want to amp up the difficulty level, you can add what we call a distractor so that you make the activity a little bit more challenging. I see here that I need to update living room, so I can come right back, find my living room, and fix my spelling. Everything is totally customizable inside BookWidgets. Don't forget, check out your scoring options. My scoring weight is still going to remain as 1. That means that this activity, this question would be worth 5 points. Let's go ahead and add one more question. And this time, the question that I'd like to add is going to be a question that I need to grade myself. So this is going to be a short or extended response. I'm going to do a short response. Think about your house in a short 5-sentence paragraph. Tell me about your favorite room. And because we've been working on adjectives, I'm going to ask my students to include 3 adjectives. And remind them to write complete sentences. You can then totally say that you would like BookWidgets to ignore case, ignore accents, ignore punctuation marks on those auto-graded questions. Unfortunately, on my short response, I'm still going to have to go in and look at that. But I want to show you this rationale. A rationale is something that you provide the students immediately after they have submitted a response. So for example, students might be wondering, what is Mrs. Place looking for? And I might say here, I am looking for 5 sentences and 3 describing words. So my students would know as soon as they submitted their work, oh, did I have 5 sentences? Did I have 3 describing words? Great. I can also give students a hint. A hint appears while they're working on their activity. So for example, if you wanted your students to really remember about adjectives, you could say here in the hint, an adjective is a describing word. I taught students who were speaking English as a second language, learning English as a second language. Almost always in my hint, I put sentence frames. So sentence starters to help them to get started. You can include anything that you want. Everything is totally customizable, but watch what I'm going to do here. Remember, my default is always 1. I'm going to change my default because I'm asking my students to write a 5-sentence paragraph, and I'm going to change my default to 5. So this is a high stakes question for them. So I'm going to up the score on this to 5. Let's go ahead and take a look at our preview. So here is my instructions, question 1, question 2, and question 3. And right there, see, I can show my hint. When I select preview, this is really what the students will see as they do their work. While we're in the preview mode, I want to highlight for you this design section. The design section will allow you to customize specific parts of your worksheet, your quiz, your web quest, your BookWidgets activity. The design section is really great. For example, if you have students with disabilities who need to have a different kind of font, different colors. So the design options are really great if you need to customize activities for students. In a little bit, I'm going to show you how to duplicate a widget. I duplicate widgets all the time, and I send widgets in my class to different groups of students. So if I have students who need a high contrast background, I can send them that specific widget. If I have students who are able to use a dictionary while they're writing, I can include a link to a dictionary. So everything inside BookWidgets is totally customizable. Some of those customizations can be found here in general. So for example, spell check. And something that I think is really important is text to speech. Almost always I turn on text to speech. And then we select use my browser text to speech, and you will see that my browser's language is English. So that's the text that's going to show up for my students. So I just want to highlight all of these customization tools that are available to you inside BookWidgets. My quiz is done. It's now time for me to share it with my students. So I'm going to come right up here to the top of my editor, and I'm going to select that share button. Now, the great thing about BookWidgets is we are connected to many learning management systems. Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, and are two of them. Also Schoology, Moodle, Blackboard. So if you're connected to a learning management system, such as Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams, it will show up here. But then you also have show other sharing options, which is what I'm going to click right now. Show widget links. And here you have your options. Send to Google Classroom, send to Microsoft Teams, give me a QR code. Who doesn't love that? You could place the QR codes around your room. Come back to my share, show other sharing options, show widget links. If I want to share with a teacher so that a teacher can duplicate, that would look different than a student link. Of course, email, but if you have time to email all your students, come on over because I got lots of papers to grade. Or a short code. I'm going to just copy a link. And of course, I want the students to send the answers to me. So I'm going to have this checked as well. If it's a worksheet, something for practice, you can uncheck that send answers to me. Now I'm going to come up here to my link. I'm going to copy my link, which is my link that I'm going to send to my students. Now I'm going to come into my browser. I'm going to paste that link. And look, here's the student view. So now I'm going to put on my student hat and I'm going to take Mrs. Place's test. So I'm going to look at the image here. I have to type in what this is. Living room. Don't worry, I know I spelled it wrong. I'm going to put in attic. The bathroom. And do you remember that I checked off show correct answer right away? Do you see how living room turned green, attic and the bathroom turned green, but bedroom did not? Of course, there's also that squiggly line because I have my spell check on, and basement did not. Do you remember when I did this question number 5, I only said the correct answer was basement? That's why the basement isn't being marked correctly. But never fear, I'm going to show you a couple of tips and tricks when we go into grading. All right, let's listen. Kitchen. So I'm going to grab and draw. Bathroom. Grab my line. Bedroom. And you'll notice that I put in the correct answer and audio, and BookWidgets has scrambled them up. So you put in the correct audio and the correct word, BookWidgets will randomize for you. Living room. And the great thing is, every student gets them in a different order. So this must be my attic. And you can see all of my green lines are matched up. If I said the attic and the laundry room, you see my line is still blue. Of course, I would use this for a classroom activity where my students were doing a self-check, not for some kind of formative assessment that I wanted to issue a grade for. Now, remember, this is my self-graded activity. So this is the activity that I would grade myself. So the student would say, my favorite room is my bedroom. If the student wanted to see the hint, they could choose hint. Ah, yes, an adjective is a describing word. I have my describing word here. When the student is all done, they're going to submit their work. So they're going to send their work to me. I can go into my email if I have it checked off and I can get that student's work. Helpful hint, I check that off because I don't want all of those messages in my email that my students have submitted their work. I know that they're submitting their work because we're inside BookWidgets. Now, we need to see what that looks like from the teacher to grade. So I'm going to come back home, select my widgets, and you see that I have grades and reporting. I'm going to select grades and reporting. If I'm connected through an LMS, you can see here are my classes, and I will go in there to get their work. In this instance, I didn't connect through an LMS, and here it is, parts of a house. Before I even finish talking with you, I have parts of a house. I'm going to click on parts of a house, What? It's already graded for me? How great is this? I really want you to think about how you can save time by using book widgets. You can see that I have data, and of course, administrators like to see data. So I have data on each question. I have data on each student. Of course, only one of me right now. And I have my graph. When I want to grade my work, I can grade my work one of two ways. I can grade it by question, or I can grade my work by student. I'm going to grade my work by student, so I'm going to open up my student view, and you see what this looks like, a PDF. Here are all of the answers that I just completed. And do you see how question 2 is all right? Look at this little funnel. If you click this little funnel and you say hide correct answers, it makes everything that was correct go away. And why is that important? If you're like me, I read everything, whether it's correct or incorrect. So just by filtering out those correct answers, it saves a little bit of time for me. So let's take a look at number 1. So bedroom. I know that my student knows bedroom. I'm going to notice how I clicked on it, and I'm going to say, watch your spelling. I'm sure, like me, as you can see while I was typing, I also was making mistakes. Now, I may not want to count this totally correct, but I can come up here and I can adjust this score, and I can say, I'm going to give Cheryl half a point. Even though she didn't spell it correctly, she knows what it is. And now I see here, this is totally correct, the basement. So I have one of two things that I can do. I can mark it as correct. And once I mark it as correct, I'm going to come over here and make sure that I have my updated score of 4.5. I'm not going to give 5 out of 5 because I still have that half a point for the spelling. Question number 2, everything was totally correct. Question number 3 looks good, but it's missing a few things. And you can see my rationale here. I'm looking for 5 sentences and 3 describing words. Once I put that in the rationale, I don't have to retype it. So I'm going to say, while your sentences were good, it's not sufficient. And I already have my rationale there. But very important, you need to make sure that you give those points. So for your self-graded questions, they're already there. But for the questions that you have to grade, you need to go in and make sure you put in those points. Now I could come up and select my little arrow to return work, but if I have a class of 40, I don't want to hit return work for every student. So I'm going to show you an easier way to return your work to your students all at once. Now remember, I also told you that you can grade the work by question. So here I can hop into the work and once again see my students' work. And I navigate from question to question by using my arrows here. So navigate from question to question by using my arrows. Here, I'm going to take that filter off because I want to enter a comment. Great job for getting all of those correct. Click my X. I'm right back to my page. And the same thing with grading student by student, I would have those same arrows in the upper left and the upper right to navigate from student to student. So now I've graded all of my work for my students, and I want to show you that helpful hint that I was telling you about. Come down to your cogwheel here next to answers, and you can say select all results. Now you have a check mark for all of your students. Return results. So with just 2 clicks, you will be able to return the results to all of your students at once, rather than returning work one by one by one, click by click by click. You'll notice that my work is updated, right? Now I'm going to return the results. My students will get an email that will say, find the results of your work along with the feedback, who it's going to, and I return that work. Each of my students will get that work returned to them. Super important that you wait until you get this green bar that says the work has been returned. Don't navigate away from the page until it says that the work has been returned. There we go. Now, I also want to make sure that I highlight a couple of other things for you that I think are really great options. So you'll notice when we select widgets that I have all of my widgets listed here, but I'd like to scroll down for a minute and highlight for you my groups. I want you to go ahead and take a look at my groups. One of the things that's really great about BookWidgets is that we encourage teacher collaboration, and it's through my groups that you can collaborate. There's really two parts to my groups. The first part is you yourself can create a group. So for example, Kate and I are in a group together where we collaborate. We share widgets, we share ideas, we have a lot of fun as we collaborate. I want you to think about your school or your district. Do you have teachers that you share content with? Maybe you can collaborate on sharing widgets and creating widgets together. One of the things that I love about BookWidgets is it's about freeing up time for the things that you love to do. So if you can create a group where teachers collaborate and share widgets, then that's a great way to save time. Additionally, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, it says Discover Groups. And this is where you can also find groups to join. So previously I talked about creating your own groups to collaborate with teachers at your school, your district, or people that you want to collaborate with. I love the search group function because in the search group function, you can search for specific groups that you would like to connect with. So here, if I'm a primary educator, I can see the different groups that I could join. Maybe I want to join a French group. So I could search for something in French. If you see a group that looks interesting, you're going to click on the name of that group, and you will usually be prompted to join the group. You will request to join the group, and the administrator of the group will approve you, and then you will be able to contribute widgets and take widgets as needed from those groups. So I think sometimes it's important for us to talk about what's here hiding on that left-hand side. So don't forget groups that you create or groups to join. And then let's go down one more, especially if you're new. We have some BookWidgets examples. So some ready-made examples that you can take a look at to get inspiration or to copy. So just use this pull-down menu here, and you will have the idea for what are the widgets that you might be able to copy from and take. And these are examples that you can look at to get started. One of my favorite widgets that I first used when I started with BookWidgets was this one right here, the split whiteboard road instructions. If you know me, or if you've been following me on Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn, you know that I am a bilingual world language teacher who used BookWidgets in my classroom before I came to the BookWidgets team. And this is a widget that I used. When my students were speaking English, one student read the left-hand side, and the other student followed the directions on the right-hand side. And this is a whiteboard activity, so you can draw. I got some great designs where students weren't being able to quite follow the directions, but the more we practiced, the easier it got. So please make sure that you check out all of those inspirational activities we have for you. And you'll notice when I clicked on the road instructions activity, I had the make a copy in my account button. So that's there for you to use. While we are not a content library, we do have some content available for you to help you get started. So I wanted to highlight that for you as well. Remember I said that you can duplicate widgets? Here I have parts of the house. And let's say that I have students who have extra time or accommodations, or I want to include other things. I can come right down over here to this cogwheel. I can select duplicate. BookWidgets will ask me where I want to duplicate it. I want to duplicate it inside my widget. So I'm just going to duplicate in the same place that I am right now. Let me move my taskbar out of the way. I've got a couple of taskbars in the way. I say duplicate here. And now you can see just as soon as I came back, I have parts of the house 1 and parts of the house 2. You'll notice this one on the top doesn't have this code. So I know that that's the one that I just created. I can now come in here and I can make any changes I want to my questions to ensure that I have differentiated this activity for a specific group of students. And then I can share it just with them. So I love this idea that I can duplicate directly inside BookWidgets, and I don't have to retype everything. I'm going to make sure that I save time. And then one other thing that I really want to highlight for you is this cogwheel here in the upper right. In the upper right, if you pull down this cogwheel, at the very bottom, it says import from a document. You probably, if you're new to BookWidgets, already have activities, worksheets, and things that you've created. Well, guess what? You're not going to need to retype those. You can import from a document or import from a PDF. And guess what? We have a webinar coming up on digitizing your content. So if you're at all interested in that, make sure that you sign up for that webinar. So now that I've showed you how to duplicate, let me also show you how inside your widgets from that same pull down menu, you can move. So here we are, show, move. Remember that group that Kate and I have where I share materials with Kate? I can share this with Kate. So I'm going to move my widget into another folder. If I have a folder, for example, inside my planner group where maybe Kate and I are working, I duplicate my widget there. So we can share, we can move, we can duplicate widgets all from inside the BookWidgets dashboard. Oh my gosh, that was a lot of work. My brain is like jam-packed with all of the things that I taught you. But I hope that if you were new to BookWidgets, you learned some new things. And if you are a veteran widget user, maybe I gave you a hint or a tip that was really valuable or useful for you.